Hey guys, it's me, Fluffy Bear, and I think we all had things we obsessed about when we were kids. Maybe it was a show your parents put on for you nonstop, or a video game you loved to play, or maybe a kids movie. And I had those too, but I've noticed recently that I had a few outliers of things that I was really obsessed with that were actually sort of strange looking back on it. 3 in particular stand out to me, and honestly, they kinda got progressively worse as I got older. So I figured why not talk about it to you and show the strange cavern that was my childhood brain. The earliest thing that stuck out to me was tornadoes. This one's the fuzziest in my memory because I was really young when it happened, and I'm not even sure exactly when this one took place, but somewhere in the middle of elementary school, I got absurdly into just looking at videos of tornadoes. To my childhood brain, they just didn't make any sense, and it was insane to me that they just kinda happened sometimes. Growing up in California, where we didn't ever have to worry about them or prepare for one, it definitely helped me get obsessed by not being scared one would appear near me or anything. Plus, let's be honest, they're also just kinda cool looking as well. Like, yes, they're interesting to try and understand, but I also just can't help but think they look cool as they're ripping apart an entire ass building and causing devastation. Even though you do still have to feel bad for the families affected because, you just saw a house get destroyed. I remember going to YouTube when I was a kid and just looking up videos of tornadoes for hours, video after video, whether it was a full-on documentary segment about them or just a recording some guy took on his cheap camera. I don't know if there was a specific catalyst to it, but I remember really wanting to catch the movie Twister on one of those channels that played movies all day, and I just wasn't really able to most of the time, or I'd catch the ending of it every now and again the few times it played. Apparently my sisters watched that movie with me once and I just completely forgot about that. I could have sworn I haven't watched it in full to this day, but I guess I was just so young that I forgot. As well, on our old family computer, there were quite a few games installed. Almost none of which I know the names of, and mostly just remember vague things about, so it's hard to search for them. One of them was a video game where you control a tornado and have to get as big as possible. I don't remember if these happened at the same time, or if it's just a coincidence, but I would spend hours on that game, partially because I was a dumb kid who only vaguely knew how to play. It was really fun, and I remember bringing this up to someone I was talking to, and they mentioned a game called Tornado Jockey. I don't know if it's that one though. I remember it being more of a top-down view in the game, I remember. Looking into it, I'd have to have Windows 7 installed to play it anyway, so that'd be a whole process to play it again for nostalgia or something. Regardless, I remember playing this game so much, and that might have actually fueled my obsession with tornadoes even more, or to begin with. On a bit of a sad note, I tried looking up tornado videos on YouTube again a while back, and it just feels very different now. I believe other people have talked about YouTube search not being as good nowadays, and I definitely noticed it when I tried looking again, because there were like vlogs and stuff that I remember didn't show up when I was a kid. A lot of which just wasn't really what I was looking for, or only tangentially related, and not a whole lot of videos of just tornadoes. Apparently there's a way to filter videos after a certain date, so maybe I'll try looking through some older videos for nostalgia or something at a later point, I don't know. The last thing to bring up on this subject is that one day a video showed up on my recommended section about tornadoes. This was like 2 years or so after I tried searching for more of them again, so it came as a total surprise to me. So I watched it. To my surprise, there's a whole community about tornadoes and other similar weather events. Apparently you can even be like a total nerd about it. There's even common topics they talk about.
So a few years back, my friend Carson and I were just hanging out and we're talking about tornadoes. We're talking about all the tornado topics. Moore, Joplin, Andover, James Spann.
I don't think I'll go that deep, but this channel and others like it are definitely something I watch every now and again to make my inner child happy. Weird thing I was into number 2 was the Titanic, and no, I'm not talking about the movie. The story of the Titanic is actually really interesting. Lindsay Ellis points out in her video about the movie that it's almost the perfect story to tell about a sinking ship.
It was the largest moving object in the world built by human hands at the time, as well as the apex of Edwardian glamour. It was to be the captain's last voyage before he retired, and the ship sank on its maiden voyage. Any publisher would throw that concept out for being way too over the top if it had not actually happened.
This obsession was a little broader than my tornado phase because there's not exactly video of the actual ship sinking, and you couldn't easily rewatch a movie back then without buying it. So instead, I watched just about anything there was to learn about the ship. The story of it, how it happened, why it broke in half, a diagram of how it sank, a Lego recreation of it sinking in a pool, literally anything young me could find. Once again, I don't remember exactly when this happened, but I know the 100th anniversary had passed because one of the clips I'd go back to every now and again was from the documentary documentary celebrating it, so it was at least around 2012. Like I mentioned, I'd watched so much about it, there was a period where if you had asked me a random question about the sinking, I probably knew the answer to it. As a kid, I loved the movie as well, but I would joke I only liked the second half of it because I honestly didn't care too much about the romance side of it. When I rewatched the movie as an adult, however, I actually really liked the first half too, and I'm glad I could appreciate it now. It's honestly super cool to see an accurate recreation of the ship sinking. After learning as much as I could about the Titanic, young me would then move on to learn about other famous sunken ships. The Lusitania, Andrea, Titanic's sister ship, the Britannic, all ships I could learn about from videos and documentaries. I even learned about the Costa Concordia, although I guess that only half counts. I also remember reading about the plan to raise it up and salvage it and getting excited to see how that would work. They even made a movie recreating the sinking of the Lusitania. I recommend it, it's actually really good and isn't just a ripoff of Titanic, unlike the movie they made about the Britannic. Yep, that's a real thing someone made and I watched it. I even watched both versions of Poseidon, although I was kinda sad to learn it was fictional, but also glad it meant that a bunch of people didn't actually die. Just like with the Titanic, I would look for videos about other famous sunken ships and watch recreations of it, or videos explaining things about them or whatever else. I remember learning about the game Sinking Ship Simulator and getting excited to see it getting worked on because I already watched so many videos of ships sinking, it was cool to just have a little simulator for them, even if it was pretty rudimentary. Hell, after I got into Roblox, I even found a game on there that was just about surviving a sinking ship over and over again. I even forced Pedro to play with me. There was a bunch of categories of videos that I always watched about sinking ships. I forgot them all, but I remember watching stuff like stop-motion Lego videos about sinking ships. There was a video game where I believe you have to sink a ship or two with a torpedo, and I watched a bunch of playthroughs of that part, literally anything I could find. Similar to me looking for old tornado videos, YouTube randomly recommended me a few videos about sunken ships that were video essays describing the stories of them. Once again, it turns out there's an entire community of people interested in sunken ships, and I find that really freaking cool. There's even a guy who blew up on TikTok simply known as the Titanic guy, and his channel is amazing. I even found out about even more sunken ships that I didn't know about when I was younger, and it was such a blast hearing new stories of more sunken ships like I did when I was a kid. I haven't looked up any sinking ship recreations like I used to though. I should look at those again for a weird sense of nostalgia. Funnily enough, the real-time recreation of the Titanic sinking popped up after my phase ended, so I haven't actually watched it, but I should. I don't really see a reason why I haven't. I think I get the point now, but yeah, this one in particular, I remember being an absolutely huge part of my childhood, and one day I just kinda stopped and I don't know why. And finally, weird thing I obsessed over as a kid number 3 is 9/11. So an interesting fact about me is that I was born just 2 months before the attacks happened, so I kind of grew up in a weird period where I was living through the effects and aftermath of 9/11, and in the word it helped start, but also I was a dumb kid who didn't know anything. I remember hearing the phrase 9/11 and knowing it was a bad thing, but one day I remember being in a pool with my sisters and talking to them, and they mentioned something related to the event, and I realized I didn't know what actually happened. I believe it was sometime around 2013, so I was around 12, and I just hadn't had it explained to me or anything before then. I got curious afterwards, so I decided to look up a video of it. It didn't hit me what the weight of the attack was until I saw that imagery of the hole in the side of this skyscraper and smoke coming out of it, and then seeing the second plane hit. There's something so surreal about seeing that footage for the first time, like seeing an airplane full of people just plunge into the side of a building, knowing full well no one survived. Nowadays, we're kind of collectively desensitized to it, but if you just stop and think about that, look at the video of it. Listen to the goddamn 911 phone calls from the building. That shit is tough. So naturally, I decided to learn as much as physically possible about it. I remember looking for a bunch of news footage of it happening live. It's strange seeing it with full hindsight, seeing all of them go from confusion to just straight fear as they find out this was no accident. I also looked up a bunch of documentary clips and different angles of it all. At this point, YouTube had developed more closer to how it is nowadays, so there were also just so many videos of people explaining different aspects about it. I remember seeing a video explaining the whole jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams thing. I watched videos talking about the other planes. I saw a video of the only footage we have of the Pentagon being hit. I saw the movie about the fourth plane which didn't reach its destination because the passengers fought back and unfortunately crashed the plane in the field. Once again, I saw a few videos of simulations that were made to show animation of it happening. Just like with the Titanic, I just wanted to learn as much as possible about it. Inevitably, I remember seeing a certain video in my recommended. It was named something to the effect of Believe Your Own Eyes, with the thumbnail relating to the attacks in some way. I was very curious, and it turns out this was a conspiracy theory video, and a long one too. I'm actually kind of proud of young me, because I remember watching the whole thing, and after it ended, just thinking to myself, this is one of the dumbest things I've ever watched. The reason I remember the name specifically is because I remember also thinking that it was very ironic to name a video about the event Believe Your Own Eyes when we have actual video of the planes hitting the towers that were taken from so many different angles. So one of the things I would watch every now and again after that was conspiracy theory videos, getting mad at how dumb they were, and then looking up debunking videos afterward. I'm not going to sit here and explain how we know it all happened and whatnot. Miles Power has a great video series on it. Similarly to Titanic, I remember towards the end getting into videos of buildings collapsing. Real videos of it happening as well, but I mostly watched like simulations of it. Like a 3D simulation of a building made out of simple planks being hit by a metal ball. Some people even like did it in real life, and I watched plenty of those as well. There's not exactly a whole lot of other events that are like 9/11. I mean, I guess there's other terrorist attacks, but I didn't watch those. So, unlike with sinking ships, I didn't really find out about other similar events or anything, so I just watched a bunch of those collapse simulations and quickly moved on from that phase after exhausting as much as I could about the attacks. One thing that's kind of funny is I've mentioned I watched a lot of clips or segments from documentaries, but I haven't watched a whole lot of full documentaries about this stuff. And that's because this was all before just about everything was on a streaming service. If it wasn't on YouTube or Netflix, I wasn't able to watch it back then. Nowadays, there's way more old films and documentaries on other streaming services. Some services are even free, but I'm just not as obsessed with this stuff as I used to be, so just haven't sought them out as much. Seeing as these are all part of my childhood, I figure I definitely should look at them. It's not like I don't like seeing this stuff still, but it definitely won't be the same as before either. And that's about all I have about this. I'm sure these weren't the only weird things I was obsessed with as a kid. These are just like the main 3 that stick out in my brain, and also probably the 3 most morbid. So if you enjoyed this video, give me a like, and maybe leave a comment about any weird obsession you had as a kid or something along those lines. The algorithm likes it when you do both of those. And obviously, if you're still watching and you haven't already, why not subscribe? I've clearly kept you here long enough to warrant it. Also, if you directly want to support me, I have a Ko-fi linked in the description. You can give me as little as $1, and every little bit helps as I can't monetize my videos yet. Alright, that should be just about everything. See you in the next video. Bye!